Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com with my final video on sort of financial misconceptions. In the first video, we talked about sort of companies' net worth and profits and how people really misunderstand that. In the second video, we talked about the financial markets, derivatives, and just kind of really understanding how sort of capital moves and how investors behave. In this third video, I want to talk more about sort of the interplay between cost and revenue. People always just think, oh, we just need to make more wages, make more wages, make more wages. There's two things that make your life, that make your economic life a thing. It's cost and revenue. Okay, so what happens oftentimes is that we just keep trying to beat the revenue thing. Say, hey, more revenue, more wages, more wages. But here's the thing: people can have easier lives with lower costs. Okay, and oftentimes that can result in higher wages because there's just more to go around. Okay, so imagine this. Okay, I'm a company. Okay, I basically, the only way for me to attract capital, I need to have at least a 10% profit margin, and now the law basically says, okay, we're going to increase the minimum wage, and that minimum wage reduces my profit margin to 5%. Now the problem is there's a lot of other companies in different industries with sort of different labor makeups that can still achieve that 10% margin. So now capital goes to them, not to me. So I'm not able to raise capital to continue to grow my company when we have new ideas. And then plus we're not able to reinvest as much of our own profits to grow the company internally. So, okay, so I got to make that back up. So we could increase the cost. So that's one way we do it. We increase costs, but now that those goods cost more to people who just supposedly got a raise. So while they make more, now they have to pay more. Okay? Or I have to cut back on my costs as a business. And since the big increase in my cost is labor, I got to think about ways to make my labor more productive, which could either mean, so before we'll say, hey, you know what? We used to have like donuts and a pantry full of food for all my employees, and we used to do occasional Christmas parties and whatnot. You know what? We're gonna cut those costs because first we want to avoid the fire anybody because people got lives and we want to make sure they continue getting their paycheck. But all these little extras we can't afford to do anymore. Okay. You know what? Before we had a very low deductible healthcare plan that we offered all our employees, but now we have to go to a high deductible plan. You know what? Before we sold our good in packs of 8 for the price that we sell it at, but now we're going to keep the price so that we don't have to increase the price, but we'll make it 6 per pack. Okay? You start trying to find all these ways to make up that cost. And then once you've dried all that out, okay, now the work atmosphere is worse for the employees. And then the next step is, well, you still can't do it. So now you're going to get rid of some of the employees because you just can't afford it, or you can't, the business can't continue like this, okay? Or else, basically, think about business this way. It's not a flat line. There's no business that's a flat line. Okay, you'll never just make the same amount every year. You're either growing or you're shrinking. Okay, so if something is going to hurt your trajectory of growth, it could accidentally tip you over into shrinking. So you got to start thinking about it. Okay, based when you're in business, every year could be the year that people stop buying your stuff. So you're constantly thinking, how can I optimize? And that's just the reality of it. You can't force everybody to buy the same stuff every year. That would be cruel and unusual. Okay? So, then what happens? So you start getting rid of some employees. So now not only have you gotten rid of their pantry and their Christmas party, but now you've gotten rid of some of the employees, and you're expecting the employees to remain to pick up the slack. So they're working, well, they may be working the same amount of hours. You're expected to do so much more during those hours, so they're at much higher stress. Okay, so why? Because, but it's justified because you're paying them a little bit more, right? Because the minimum wage was increased. Okay, so now they're being worked to the bone. They're not getting all the little fringe benefits that used to exist in the workplace, but they're getting paid a little bit more. Okay. And again, this is sort of an extreme. Well, you could make it more extreme, but I'm just trying to kind of illustrate sort of the path that these things happen. It's just the littlest tweaks that cause the littlest changes that keep causing these little changes to happen. And the thing is that by increasing the cost and whatnot, basically, and again, when you do these increases in taxes, increases in the minimum wage and whatnot, it affects all companies. So everything else is going to start costing more, eventually eat up that wage, that increase in wages. But now they're still in the situation where they're working a lot more for every hour, in the sense that they're having to do the job of 3 people, when before they were pretty much had the same purchasing power because goods hadn't gone up in price yet. But they were able to relax a little bit more. They had the Christmas party. They had all this, okay? Now, vice versa, let's say we did the opposite, okay? Let's say we cut taxes, okay? Company gets to keep a little bit more of its profit. Now, is that going to turn into a raise for everybody at work? Maybe. It's possible. I'm not saying it would. It could also turn into a reduction in the cost of goods, because now they have some room for to undercut the competition. So maybe we'll do some more sales. Okay, now things are a little bit cheaper for people, so some of that might turn into some price elasticity, some price action. Okay, so you might have a little bit of reduction in prices. May not necessarily all turn into a reduction of prices. Some of it may turn into an increase and whatnot. Some of it may just turn into hiring more employees. Okay, so you may not necessarily get a higher wage, but maybe you don't have to work as hard. Maybe you do get an even nicer pantry and more benefits and a better healthcare plan and other little things that money can buy. Okay, or maybe that goes to pay a dividend to investors, and those investors reinvest that money into other companies that will provide other people jobs elsewhere. Okay, but at the same time, you're not necessarily creating that situation where that pinch in the profit margin is causing people to work longer without necessarily an increase in their quality of life, actually a decrease in their quality of life because of the higher stress. So you're always better off reducing costs than trying to force an increase of revenue, whether it's an increase of revenue in the terms of wages. It's the cheaper, the less cost there is to doing business, the less pressure there is, because a lot of the unethical activities that people always point out, like, oh, I can't believe these companies did X, Y, and Z. Oftentimes it's out of pressure. Okay, it's out of the pressures of the stimulus around you. When things are tight, or when you're pushed against the walls, when you do things you may not normally do. Okay, this is why sometimes people who are the worse off will commit crimes, not because they're bad people, not because they want to, but sometimes you feel like you have no other choice. That's where a lot of unethical behavior comes from. I'm not saying all. There are definitely people who are, just have bad ethics. Okay, and oftentimes it probably has some more to do with all sorts of other reasons, but I'm not going to become a psychologist at the moment. So the point is, by decreasing burdens of regulation and taxation, you alleviate those pressures. You alleviate those pressures to push people into unethical activity, because you're not creating them in a situation where it's do something bad or go broke. Okay, you are not putting people in a position where they're working for 2 people because they can't afford 2 people. It's overall a better situation. It doesn't necessarily mean it's an ideal situation. It's not the situation we all would like. People always imagine, this world where basically everything just kind of magically fits together, and there's some sort of puzzle we need to solve to get that world. And it isn't. It's we work hard every day. We try to find new ways to make things a little bit better, and things get a little bit better here and there, and that's pretty good actually. But politics is about idealism, and I'm an idealist like anybody else, although I guess my idealism is a little less expecting sunshine and rainbows. So I'll leave it at that. My name is Alex Merced. Hopefully you guys enjoyed these videos and they help you think about a few things. Have a great day and enjoy.